Okay. Well, I think it's safe to start now.
Okay.
We'll also be sharing some recordings, some clips online in our social media. Um, so you're welcome to, I'll send you the recording, the entire recording
Okay.
afterwards. Um, so Stanislav, good afternoon, good night, almost to you. Good evening, from directly from Russia. We really appreciate you joining today, especially under the circumstances. I know that the elections are this Sunday. Russia is having local elections this Sunday, and I'm sure Golos has a lot of work to do during these elections. So I really do appreciate you being here, taking the time to be with us. Everybody who's joined and everybody who's watching the YouTube stream, Stanislav Andreychuk, did I say that correctly? He's a co-chair of the Movement for Defense of Voters' Rights, Golos, and he's a PhD in history. He's joining us from Russia because there's elections this Sunday. There's local elections on Sunday, and then on 2024 next year there's supposed to be presidential elections. To give everybody a little bit more context, I believe everybody who's joining knows pretty much the context under which Golos needs to work in Russia right now. Unfortunately, there's a shrinking of civic space that happened, I believe, before the war. Even before the war, there was a lot of crackdown on civil society organizations, independent organizations, and well, Golos has not been the exception. Past August 17th, Grigory Melkonian's, whose directive of Golos, was arbitrarily detained because of the work that they do. Transparencia Electoral at some point did release a statement on what that entailed, and the threat that means, not just for domestic election monitors in Russia, but also internationally and around the world. Of course, there is going to be not just elections in the traditional or members of the Russian Federation, but also there's going to be elections in the illegally annexed Ukrainian regions of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. So there's last year, to give everybody a little bit even more context on this, on October 27th last year, the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights defenders issued a joint statement with the Special Rapporteur on freedom of peaceful assembly and association regarding the situation of national and international election observers as human rights defenders. So the declaration set a very important precedent in international recognition of the work that election observers have been doing for years. And in this particular case, it is something that we believe is worth remembering, since Golos is an organization that not just monitors elections in a very restrictive context at that, but also that it is a human rights organization, in the sense that civil and political rights are also human rights. So Stanislav, I wanted to invite you. Transparencia Electoral is very happy to have you here. We wanted to invite you to discuss and talk a little bit more about the 3 reports that Golos has released on these local elections that are happening on Sunday. And also, I believe that this week you were going to issue another report. You were going to publish another report on the elections. So what can you tell us about the elections that are happening on Sunday? I believe that Golos has made it very clear that the election is not going to be a free and fair election. But give us the details, because it seems that internationally there's narrative that is being pushed not just in Russia, but also in Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, here in Latin America, even in China and North Korea, that because elections are held, there is a democracy. And now we know that that is incorrect. So give us the details of what Golos has seen so far regarding the local elections in Russia.
Okay, thank you, Eduardo. Thank you for invitation. I will start from maybe very brief describing of context of these elections. In September, we will have 4 elections of State Duma members of parliaments, of federal parliaments. They will be re-elected in single-mandate constituencies. Then we will have 21 gubernatorial campaigns, 21 governors. Then we will have 16 elections of regional parliaments and 12 elections of city parliaments in big cities that are capitals of the regions, and also the direct elections of the mayor of Khabarovsk, a big city on the far east of Russia, not far from Japan and Northern Korea. So that is what about so-called old territory of Russia, but we will also have 4 elections in 4 territories in this zone of conflict with Ukraine. I'm sorry, I have to find the right words because it is a criminal case if I tell something not correct according to Russian law about these territories. So we will have elections of regional parliaments and local parliaments in these 4 territories. That is between Russia and Ukraine right now. And what else is important to understand the meaning of these elections? In December, presidential elections will start in the middle of December, so 3 months later. And these elections, these regional elections, are the largest and maybe first really big elections after the beginning of war with Ukraine. Because we had some regional elections and regional and local elections in 2022, but the number of these regions were not so big, and the list of these regions were very specific. We need to understand that Russia is a really big country, and regions are very different in it. So we have some territories that are absolutely totalitarian, like Chechnya, for example, where authorities get 99% with a turnout of 99%. That is absolutely unbelievable, of course, because there is no civil society, there are no real candidates, and nobody can control what happens there. But there is another part of Russia where we are sure that electoral commissions really count votes, and they show real results, and sometimes there are some competition there. So very different regions, and this time too, because there are some territories where we understand that results will have nothing in common with the reality, but there are some regions that are very competitive, and it is really interesting to watch what happens there. So when we usually think about such countries of Russia, authoritarian regimes, we usually think that it is very united, and there is a real vertical of power, as it calls in Russia. But in fact, we have a lot of different regional regimes. It doesn't mean that it is a real federalism, for example, but it is some differences, regional differences. So what is interesting about the elections of these times? First of all, we can compare them with elections of 2018. when were the same list of elections, the same list of regions mostly, and there was a big political crisis because there was a pension reform in the summer of 2018, a couple of months before the voting day, and there are a lot of protests because of it, a lot of oppositional voting in 2018. And this time we have a situation of war, we have a situation of war censorship, we have a race of pressure to civil society, to politicians, even to citizens and to voters, I mean. So a little bit different situation. So it will be very interesting to compare results of it on 11th of September. How many votes will get United Russia Party, that is a ruling party, and how many votes will get some oppositional political parties and politicians this time. But right now we can compare some other data. For example, we see that the number of politicians that want to be that want to take part in this electoral race is decreasing. If we will, so people just don't want to take part in elections. Many politicians don't want, even strong politicians. Why it happens? First of all, a lot of people feels this pressure. Eduardo has already told about police search and detention in Golos movement. But the same situation was with many politicians of different political parties all over the country. So no matter what kind of political party, if you make some problems to ruling party, even if you are very loyal in your rhetoric, in your actions, even if you support the war, for example, and so on, you can feel this pressure of law enforcement agencies. It can be police search, you can be detained, you can be arrested, you can be claimed as an extremist. That means that you can't take part in elections anymore. So everybody understands that this pressure is possible. And in this situation, many people and many political parties even didn't try to take part in this electoral race. We see that the number of party lists in different regions decreased to 15 or maybe even 20% when we compare it with 2020. And when some political parties take part in this race, they do it very formally. So we don't see sometimes the real agitation, we don't see the real fight for voters. Politicians just make an illusion that they take part in these elections. But there are some territories like Yakutia, that is in Siberia, like Khakassia, some other regions that are really competitive. And in this case, we see that authorities try to make their best not to allow you to agitate. What I mean? You'll be surprised, but officially in Russia, Russia still fights against COVID epidemic. So we still have these epidemic restrictions, not in reality, but on law. That means that you can't make any public event, for example, meeting, demonstration, or something like that on the streets. You can make a football match, but all political public events are banned right now because of this, formally because of COVID. That is still a big problem for the world. Russian authorities think. Then, as soon as we have censorship, we have a lack of independent media right now. Many journalists had to came out of the country. Some of mass media had to close. And right now we have not so many channels of communication for politicians to talk with their voters. And the situation is even worse because these mass media that still exist in Russia, they usually are very dependent on local, regional, and federal authorities. And that means that they, for example, don't agree to publish any political agitation during elections. So what do we have? We don't have possibility to agitate on the streets. We don't have real possibilities to agitate in mass media. So what we have? We have social media, but Facebook and Instagram are banned in Russia too. And you need to use VPN to go to Facebook, to surf in Facebook or Instagram. And of course, the majority of country of people doesn't use it right now. So you have, but we have some Russian social medias like ВКонтакте and Одноклассники, but both of them are ruled by the son of the deputy head of administration of president. So that means that these social medias are ruled by the office of president administration directly. We have also Telegram, that is today is a main media source for political issues, for political topics. But it is also a very specific thing because it is anonymous, usually anonymous political channels, and you don't understand sometimes who's the author of the channel, and you don't understand what kind of politics it has. Do you really can believe in it or not? So you see that there is a really big problem with the channels of communication. Then we have a problem with registration of candidates, because I have already told that the number of those who want to be elected has reduced this electoral campaign. But we also see that you can't be registered if you are not from parliamentary political party. You know, we have a system of registration. Parliamentary political parties will be registered in any case, but all other had to collect signatures of voters. And unfortunately, the situation is that you can be sure that you will not be registered according to signatures, because police officers will find a lot of signatures that are not real as they think, and you can go to court and say that no, there is a real signatures. You can ask real voters who will say that these signatures are real, but court will listen only police. So if you don't this possibility to be a candidate of these 5 political parties that are in Russian parliament, it means that you have no chance to take part in elections, except of situation when you're a so-called spoiler. It is a political party or candidate who don't want to win really, but he just tried to get some votes from some real oppositioner. For example, we have a Communist Party of the Russian Federation that is that was formerly the Communist Party of Soviet Union. It is the leading oppositional political party right now. Formally, but we also have a political party that calls Communists of Russia. that usually get a lot of votes only because people miss these two political parties. They want to vote for Communist Party of the Russian Federation, but they vote in reality for the Communists of Russia. And we see that Communists of Russia were registered in the majority of the regions where they wanted to be nominated to the elections. And this is a difference with all other independent politicians or all other oppositional political parties that have to collect signatures. So we see two bases of this political and electoral system. First basis is control of authorities over the registration. You know, it is like Coca-Cola will control who will be on the benches of supermarkets. I'm sure that we will not see Pepsi in this case. It is something like that. Then we see control over media sphere, censorship, and so on. I even talk about trolls and bots in social media, just about censorship. The third basis is pressure over voters, over citizens. Right now, it is a usual situation for the end of August and the beginning of September. We have a lot of messages about situations when boss in some company make a pressure to his people who work for him to come to polling stations and to vote for some candidates. This year's situation is even worse than usual because right now we have a so-called online voting. This time, more than 20 million of people will be able to vote online. I think it is the largest online voting in the world in all its history. It will be in 20 regions. On presidential elections, it will be in 30 regions, and over 50 million of people will be able to vote online. It doesn't mean that they have to vote online, but they can it. And what we see right now, we see that heads of companies, heads of budget offices, governmental bodies, and so on, press to people to go to register as online voters and to vote online. What does it mean in practice? When you are under this pressure, but you come to some average polling station when you vote with a paper ballot, your boss usually know that you go to polling station, but he doesn't know what mark, what candidate you choose in your ballot, in your paper ballot. And people understand it. So they will come to polling station, but they will be able to make the choice that they really want. But when you vote online, you can't be sure that your boss will not know what choice you did. And people are afraid of it very much. And that means that those people who make this pressure really control the will of people. And people have no choice. They will vote for United Russia, for candidates from authorities. They can be not from United Russia, they can formally be independent candidates or from even some different political parties, no matter. But they're supported by authorities. And the fourth basis are frauds, of course. And again, we know that we have a lot of frauds on Russian elections, especially in some kind of regions. But we uh, we we think that online voting can be a very good tool for frauds because nobody can control it. Nobody have seen the code of this system. Nobody understands how it really works except of people who designed this system, who established this system. Even Central Election Commission can't control online voting system. So it is like a black box that just show you some figures, but you can't check are these figures right or not. And even during tests of this online voting, we have seen a lot of strange things. For example, I think it was a couple of days ago during the test of federal online voting system. In one moment, system showed to observers that on one polling station, more than 2000% of turnout. And next minute, there was a zero. So it means that this system shows you something different from what really happens, because it is impossible that 2000% of turnout and next minute zero. Really impossible. You have a stack of ballots in your ballot box or not. They can't disappear in a second, but it happens. So we understand that we can't control this system. There are four bases of electoral system in Russia right now, and I can also describe you some specific of territories in the conflict area, because it is also interesting. First of all, nobody knows the number of voters, not even names of voters, but even the number of voters in these regions, because there is a war. There is part of territories that Russia officially consider its territory in Zaporozhye and Khersonskaya Oblast that are under Ukraine control, not under Russian control. And this border, this real border, not the former border, every day changes. So you don't know the number of voters, you don't know sometimes names of voters. These voters don't have Russian passports. And according to Russian law, you can vote only by your Russian passports or a small number of other documents. But this time, Electoral Commission says that you can vote in these territories in any document you have, even when Russian law says the different. And we also have such kind of things like it calls extraterritorial polling stations. It means that there will be established polling stations not in Donetsk and Lugansk, where there is a battle, but also 3 or 4 or 5,000 of kilometers from this territory in other parts of Russia, in Omsk, Yakutia, in Far East, and so on. And people from Donetsk who had to move from their houses because of war will be able to vote in these territories. But in the same time, such kind of polling stations will be established in Donetsk and Lugansk for the people from other parts of Russia who are in Donetsk and Lugansk right now, like soldiers, like developers, and so on. What's the problem with these polling stations? First of all, electoral commissions don't have any representatives of political parties in these polling stations. So according to Russian law, in each electoral commission must be a half of members that are from political parties. In these territories, none of them will be from political parties. In the same time, you can't, you're not able to send observer to these polling stations. because it's clear, because you're a candidate in Omsk, for example, that is 3,000 kilometers from Donetsk. And of course, you can't send an observer from Omsk to Donetsk to the polling station that is so far from you. So there is no any control. And in some cases, on some local elections, we even don't know the names of candidates because they are not published on the websites of electoral commissions. Of course, you will come to polling stations and you will see them, their names, but you can't watch it on a distance. It's not really elections, of course. And of course, you can't make elections during the war, because for free and fair elections, for democratic elections, you have to think about civil and human rights and freedoms. That is absolutely impossible in the situation of war, in the situation of battlefield. So we can say that it is not very important because it is local and regional elections, but 3 months later we will have presidential elections, and we will have the same situation on federal elections. And these problems from these local elections will go through all entire country. We will see all these problems all over Russia. So it is also a big problem for us. And maybe the last thing that will describe you the whole situation is that the last year we see a very systemic steps to reduce possibilities of observers. For example, we had in Russian law a status. I'm not sure that I even can translate. Give me a second to check how to translate. Okay. We had a status of the members of electoral commissions with advisory vote. They were representatives of candidates and political parties. Right now, we don't have this status. It is cancelled. These people could check documents of electoral commissions, could work with all these documents, could have a voice on events of commissions, so they could tell something and so on. Then we had a status of representatives of candidates and political parties. It is the different status. Right now, Electoral Commission says that this status doesn't work on voting days, only during agitation period. So we can't use it. Then we used for observation status of mass media representatives. People make treatments with the mass media like freelancers, and they then came to polling stations. But this time, Central Election Commission said that you can't be a freelancer. You have to be in a staff of mass media, and only in this situation, in this case, you will be allowed to polling station during voting days and counting of votes. So we have the last status, the status of observers. That was the worst status because it is very bureaucratic and not so many possibilities for you for control. But even with them, Electoral Commission tries to not allow them to make photos, not to make videos. They want observers will sit in a corner of the room and don't move through the polling station, and so on and so forth. So we still can send some people on polling stations, not we, again, movements, NGOs can't send anybody to polling station. It is for last 15 years or something like that, I think. Only candidates and political parties, and so-called public chambers that in reality are some kind of governmental bodies. They are formed by government. So that is the only possibilities. So you see that observation is also reduced. So what we had? We have a reduce of possibilities to observe. And the pressure on goals in August is one of the steps to reduce these possibilities of observations of observers. We see the pressure on voters, and we expect big frauds on these elections. And we see that candidates possible candidates, politicians don't want to take part in these elections. And if they want, they can be not registered. We see that in some regions, really strong politicians were not allowed to electoral race. So we see the reduce of competition right now. And a lack of freedom of speech, of course, because you can't make public events, you can't make demonstrations, you can't go to mass media, and so on and so forth. Does it mean that these elections has no interest for people and for experts? Not, because maybe you'll be surprised, but in some territories, in some parts of Russia, we see very competitive campaigns. For example, in Khakassia, on gubernatorial elections, the candidate from the ruling party from United Russia were not the best in campaign, and 2 days ago he write a document that he will not take part in this race anymore. He is not a candidate. He told that he has a problem with his health, and he's not a candidate anymore. But I'm sure that the only reason why it was made was that he didn't want to be a loser in these elections. We see real competitions in some Siberian and Ural and northern regions. Sometimes very tight competition, sharp competition, with some force, with some attacks, even with knives to the agitators and to candidates. So very criminal campaigns sometimes. So that means that from one side, authorities try to make something like a submarine for themselves, where they are inside submarine and the whole society is somewhere outside, in open space between sharks. But when we see that, when we look to the territories that are not so authoritarian as the other part of Russia, we see that the real public opinion is very different. We see that authorities has real problems with supporters. Of course, they will try to show something like 80% of supporters of the president on presidential elections on March. But we understand that it is very simple to do with online voting, with the territories where you have 99% officially, with these territories in conflict area where no laws really work, and so on. But the reality that we see in competitive campaigns says that situation is not so good for Kremlin and for these administrators of elections. I mean, not official administrators. I mean, not the electoral commission, but I mean real administrators, those who works with domestic policy in the Russian Federation. Well, I think That's all. I think it is even too much. So
No, I think you've covered. I really thank you, Stanislav, because I think you have covered pretty much what the situation is like in Russia right now. I do apologize because there seems to be um, Goes is under a very delicate position right now. And I understand, as you said before, that you need to call these territories in the way that the Russian government will like you to call them, because otherwise you would be breaking the law. So I didn't want to compromise you there. But there's a lot of things clearly that have been going on. That what you say, election observers, it being bureaucratic. I wanted to ask you to clarify something. You say that when you meant that when you went to register as an election observer, but you were a freelance, you weren't part of the staff of an action organization that does election observation, you were not allowed to be registered. Is that correct? Or is it
no, no,
for
no,
the media? Like if you
no.
wanted to cover a journalist, yeah,
It is only for journalists. So
for journalists, I see.
for
Right,
for
yeah,
journalists,
freelance journalists who usually, yeah, they usually work for these big media outlets out there who, they can't just, they kind of outsource that work to cover those very specific positions on the ground. They tend to outsource that to freelance journalists, but Russia is asking them, no, you can't be a freelance journalist. You have to be on the
yeah.
roll. You have to be formally on the staff in order to have an accreditation of press.
Yeah, the point is that in previous years, many volunteers, many activists, civic activists, went to police station not like a formal observers, because it is really very difficult status. You have to prepare documents 3 days, send them 3 days before beginning of the voting, and so on and so forth. You can't change the polling station if you need, and so on. But many activists use the status of journalists, mass media representatives. And of course, they didn't have this treatment. They were not a part of staff. They were officially, they were freelancers in these mass media outlets. Not big sometimes. Some of NGOs make their own mass media just for voting days, to send people to polling stations. Again, because you can't send them, because you can't officially send observers. You don't have these rights. You have to connect with candidates and political parties, but sometimes you don't have competition in the region. That means that there is no candidate or political party that is ready to send your people, to send your volunteers, to send your activists to the polling stations. And for such cases, we also made a mass media. And so we had the possibility to send people. Sometimes it was thousands of people on federal elections, for example. But Central Election Commission understands it, and they closed this possibility this time.
I understand. Yeah. So they found out that that was a strategy.
Yeah.
That they knew that that was a strategy for domestic election monitors, and so basically they closed that door
Yeah. Yeah.
to prevent anybody from observing the election. I see. I understand. When it comes, it's very interesting what you're saying about the election campaign, because if I understood correctly, the thing is, COVID is still an excuse for the Russian government for them to
Yeah.
ban public demonstrations, is it correct? And public campaign events and such. So basically, the election campaign has moved on to social media. But
Yeah. Yeah.
major social media companies and platforms such as Facebook and Instagram, who are products of their parent company Meta, they are they're forbidden in Russia. So people need to get a VPN for them to access Facebook or Instagram. And so most people don't go through the trouble or don't know how to use a VPN. So people don't have access to these platforms. So what they do is that they use a state-controlled social media platforms, which like you said, is they're controlled by the son of a high-ranking official in the Russian government, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but I'm interested in knowing what's the TV lens when it comes to traditional media like the TV and radio. What's the TV landscape? What's the media landscape? What does it look like now for
Uh,
any real competitors of the incumbent party, United Russia?
well, TV is absolutely dependent on authorities. There is no independent TV channel at all. There was a TV channel, Дождь, Rain. That was a oppositional or independent TV channel, but it is also banned in Russia. Journalists can't be in Russia because if you work for such kind of organization that is banned, it is a criminal case for you. You'll be in prison. So all of them are in Europe, not in Russia, in Netherlands, in Latvia, and so on and so forth. And you can't see them on TV channel. You can't see on them only on YouTube. But YouTube still works in Russia, but Russian authorities also make some tries to ban YouTube too. And the last problems, users told that the last problems were yesterday with YouTube in some regions of Russia. And of course, we can say that, but you can Google something or to search in Google, to search in some other space. But the most popular internet searcher is Yandex. And it is also controlled by government right now. It means that all links to the websites that are banned in Russia are also banned in internet. But Yandex also have a front page with main news. And this collection of main news are absolutely the same like on TV. That means that there is no real difference between users of TV set and users of internet in majority, in common, because if you go to Yandex front page, you will see the same news. But of course, people usually don't make a lot of steps to find something special about politicians, about political issues. There are not so many political beasts. There are not so many political activists. The average person has some other interests, football, something about cooking, something about popular science or entertainment or something else, not political issues. So you see main topics, main political news on Yandex front page, and it is enough for you. You don't go to Google to search something with VPN, with something like that, and so on.
So pretty much, so the media landscape pretty much is everything is controlled by the state, and if
Yeah,
wherever that control cannot be exercised, then there's censorship. Basically, is what you're saying. In the case of YouTube, is not forbidden in Russia, but access to certain profiles or channels is locked. There's censorship of certain channels on YouTube.
yeah, it tries. It doesn't work right now, but they try. Yeah, and there is one more interesting internet tool. It is groups and chats in WhatsApp that we can't observe at all, of course, can't monitor because all of them are closed groups. But what are these groups usually? It is groups of school parents that were made by teachers, for example, or something like that. And if you control teachers, and if you're an authority, of course, you control teachers. It means that you control all these chats and groups in WhatsApp, and you can make any agitation you will in it without any control, without any law restrictions, and so on and so forth. Because nobody will see it. Only if some of the members of this group will publish something on some outside in some independent space and so on.
You made a very interesting analogy when you were talking about the registration of candidates. That if the Russian officials, election officials, and government officials were Coca-Cola, you wouldn't expect them to, or you would at least expect them to cut the competition. And so, if there were Coca-Cola, you wouldn't expect them to approve of Pepsi being available everywhere, right? So there's a strategy to kind of undermine competition for this particular election. What I was seeing just now is that out of the 85 or so regions that Russia has, that the Russian Federation is made of, 21 are running gubernatorial elections for governor. Out of those 21, only 6 are controlled by opposition parties. And by opposition, I mean parties different than the incumbent party. But I wanted to ask you, these 6 regions that are governed by different parties that are not United Russia, are they opposition or are they part of the government coalition? Or what exactly is the situation in those 6 regions?
These 6 regions are not from 21 that will be elected right now, but is all over the country. From these 21, I think that there's the only region that is controlled by a different party, KPRF. It is Khakassia. What about these regions? There is something like an informal contract between Kremlin and other political parties. I mean parliamentary political parties, that each of these political parties will have one governor in one region. So LDPR get a governor in Khabarovsk, KPRF in Ulyanovsk and Ulyanovsk and Orel Oblast, and so on. New People Party, that is a new party, it is a parliamentary party from 2021, they still don't have any governor. And so from these 6 regions, there is the only region, Khakassia, a small republic in deep Siberia, and that we can tell that the opposition is a governor there, because it was in 2018 there were very unexpected results on elections. We had the same situation, control over registration, censorship, and so on and so forth. But suddenly, people after pension reform voted for the politicians that were not really popular and nobody knows them sometimes. And Khakassia was one of these regions. In other region, in Vladimirsky Oblast, on the second step of elections, the guy from LDPR, Liberal Democratic Party of Russia, that is not liberal, not democratic, in fact, this guy even asked voters not to vote for him, but to vote for his opponent. I think you can't imagine it. So there were no oppositionists, but people were so tired from United Russia candidates in these regions that they decided that they will vote for anybody else. And so they really elected some unexpected people in Khabarovsky Krai, in Vladimirsky Oblast, and in Khakassia. As a result, a governor from Vladimirsky Oblast today is not a governor anymore. He is a member of national parliament. The governor of Khabarovsky Krai is not a member, is not a governor anymore. He is in prison. right now. For 15 years, I think he will be imprisoned. And only in Khakassia, small, not very important for Kremlin Republic, governor still is the same person from a Communist Party, and he tries to re-elect right now. He will be re-elected, I think, this Sunday. No, he has really good chances to be re-elected, but I'm not sure that he will not be in prison next 5 years or something like that.
Right. So I understand. I get the picture of what the political context is like. Studying the situation, for example, in Nicaragua not so much now. Cuba, of course, even less, because there's no other political party, no other legal party other than the Communist Party. But the situation in Venezuela, for example, is similar to that of Russia in the sense that the regional uh, gubernatorial races can be competitive, and they can be, there can be a risk of the incumbent party on a national level to lose some of those regions, some control over those regions. And so they will take, what they do is that the incumbent party takes the opportunity to portray itself as democratic state, that the elections were free and fair. But then whether or not these governors are able to take office, that's a different situation. And what you're saying is interesting because people who are in jail, people who have been, who have been perhaps removed from office after they took office, it's one of those examples. It's not just winning the election, is whether or not you can exercise the right to claim the office that you won during the election. So it's a very interesting situation. It's a very interesting strategy. I think it's a trait of autocratic regimes today, to allow some level of competition that does not threaten the power that they have. So I think we've run out of time, Stanislav, but I wanted to get like conclusions from you. What can we expect on Sunday? I don't know if you wanted to comment on something of what I just said, something that to clarify,
Uh,
but what would you say, your closing remarks?
I think that on Sunday we will see two types of campaigns, two types of voting days. First type, well, maybe even three types. First type, it is the regions that will be, everything will be very calm because there is no competition, no real candidates, so nothing will happen during voting days. Of course, they will make some frauds, but nobody will know about it because there will no observers, no monitors, because no candidates send them to polling stations. We maybe see the second type of regions where will be real fight and real competition, and I think that there will be a lot of messages from these regions about some problems, but not very big problems. Because usually competition is in the same regions where electoral commissions try to work fair. And we will see the third type that will be something in between all these two types. Some type of competition, but not very high, but a big number of frauds and a big number of scandals on it. That is the usual picture for Russia. That is the usual picture when we see different types of regions, different types of territories. Sometimes even in one region, we see different universes. For example, sub-Moscow region, that is very close to the capital, very big region when we count the number of voters, something like 5 or 6 million of voters there. Half of it is some kind of normal space, and half of it is, like Chechnya, like worst world examples of unfair and unfree, unreal elections. So it will be very interesting to watch to this very different map of the country. And of course, I think we will understand some things about future presidential elections, upcoming presidential elections, because we will understand how much people used online voting, for example, how much people voted on these extraterritorial polling stations from Donetsk and so on. So we will get a lot of figures, I hope, that will be a basis for future analysis.
Thank you so much, Stanislav, for your time, for your insights, for your organization's work. I think it's really important that as a domestic election monitor, you continue to record and keep track of all of these things that help kind of debunk the narrative that just because a country holds elections, they're a democracy. I think your take and your analysis, Golos's work really dips into why the concept of election integrity is so important. That is not just that elections are held, but also the conditions under which those elections are held. So I really do appreciate your time. There were a few questions that I didn't get to ask about, disinformation, fake news campaigns. You mentioned something about the role that trolls and bots played in the election campaign. Also, of course, the election in the territories under conflict. I think that's a very important. You mentioned that the document, some things that are in the law, they were made flexible by the election commission. There were a lot of things that I think we didn't cover. So I hope we can make part 2 of this webinar at some point.
Okay.
And carry on, perhaps a post-election webinar. That would be great to analyze the results of the election and how everything went down on Sunday. So I really do appreciate your time. Please send my best to your team. And it was great meeting you.
Okay, thank you for your invitation and thank you for your interest to Russian elections. I think we are not so close to your region, so thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a good night.